the sower and the seeds. In the darkness before dawn, when the wind moves across an empty field and no one is watching, a farmer walks alone with a bag of seeds slung over his shoulder. Listen. You can almost hear the faint rustle of grain against cloth, the quiet crunch of dry soil beneath his sandals. It feels ordinary, doesn't it? Just a man, just a field, just seeds. But what if I told you that this simple moment holds a truth so powerful that it has shaped nations, changed hearts, built churches, and exposed the deepest secrets of the human soul? What if the condition of your future, your faith, your family, even your eternity, depends on what kind of soil you are right now? And here's the thing. Most people listening will think they already know the answer. But by the time this story ends, you might realize you were standing on a different kind of ground all along. Stay with me, because what happens in this field will shock you, challenge you, and maybe, just maybe, awaken something you didn't even know was sleeping inside you. There was once a sower who stepped into his field at sunrise. The sky burned orange and gold, and the air carried that sacred stillness that comes before the world fully wakes. This man had done this work countless times before. His father had sown seeds in this very soil. His grandfather, too. Yet this morning felt different. He paused at the edge of the land and looked across the wide stretch of earth. Some patches were soft and dark. Some were cracked and hard. Some were tangled with thorns. And some looked promising, almost inviting. He reached into his bag and let the seeds run through his fingers. Small, unremarkable, easily ignored. And yet inside each one was the potential for life beyond imagination. He began to sow. With steady rhythm, he cast the seeds outward. Some fell along the path that cut through the field, a hard, beaten strip of ground where travelers walked daily. The seeds landed, but they did not sink. They sat exposed, vulnerable. Within minutes, birds circled overhead. Sharp eyes, quick wings. They swooped down and devoured every grain, gone, as if the seed had never existed. Some seeds fell onto rocky soil, thin earth covering hidden stone. They sprang up quickly. Oh, they looked beautiful at first. Bright green shoots reaching toward the sky faster than the rest. Anyone watching would think, now that is growth. But beneath the surface, there was no depth. No room for roots to anchor. When the sun climbed higher and the heat intensified, those promising shoots withered. They had life, but not endurance. They believed they were thriving, but they were dying from within. Other seeds fell among thorns. The soil there was rich. The seed began to grow steadily. Roots went down, stems rose up. It seemed safe, promising, sustainable. But then the thorns began to grow too. Slowly at first, then aggressively. They wrapped around the young plants, stealing light, draining nutrients, suffocating life. The seed wasn't destroyed overnight. It was choked gradually, quietly, until it produced nothing. And then, some seeds fell on good soil. Deep, prepared, soft, protected. They sank in, took root, and over time produced a harvest beyond expectation. 30-fold, 60-fold, 100-fold. One tiny seed multiplied into abundance. Now pause for a moment, because this isn't just agriculture. This is a mirror. This is the parable spoken by Jesus Christ in the Gospels, recorded in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And it has echoed across centuries as one of the most unsettling spiritual revelations ever told. The sower, Jesus explained, represents the one who spreads the word of God. The seed is the message of truth, and the soil is the human heart. Let me ask you something that might feel uncomfortable. If your heart were soil, what would it look like right now? The path represents those who hear the message but never truly receive it. The truth sits on the surface. They attend church, they scroll past sermons, they nod politely at scripture, but it never sinks in. And before it can even begin to transform them, distractions, doubts, cynicism, pride, the enemy himself, snatches it away. Research today shows that the average human attention span has dropped dramatically in the digital age. We scroll through thousands of messages daily. Thousands. Is it possible that we have trained our hearts to become hardened pathways where nothing penetrates, where truth lands but never roots? The rocky soil represents emotional faith without foundation. It's the feel-good spirituality, the conference high, the Sunday surge of inspiration. It sprouts quickly because it's fueled by excitement, but when hardship hits, when prayers seem unanswered, when relationships fracture, when faith costs something, there's no root system to hold it steady. And here's something shocking. Studies from multiple Christian research groups have shown that a significant percentage of believers walk away from their faith within a few years when faced with personal trials, not because the seed wasn't real, but because depth was missing. The thorny soil may be the most terrifying of all, because it actually grows, it looks alive, it looks healthy, but it produces no fruit. Why? Because it is crowded. Jesus described the thorns as the cares of this world, the deceitfulness of riches, and the desires for other things. In modern language, busyness, career obsession, social approval, anxiety, endless comparison. We are more connected than ever, yet more spiritually distracted than any generation before us. The thorns don't rip the plant out violently. They simply squeeze life until nothing remains but empty activity. And then there is the good soil, the heart that is humble, teachable, patient, willing to endure. This heart doesn't just hear the word. It holds on to it, protects it, waters it with prayer, guards it from predators, pulls out weeds intentionally. Growth here isn't flashy, it's steady, and eventually it becomes unstoppable. But here's the twist most people miss. The same sower scattered the same seed in every direction. The difference was never the seed. It was always the soil. Imagine standing in that field as the sun begins to set. You notice something unsettling. The rocky ground once looked promising. The thorny patch once appeared productive. Even the hardened path once seemed stable and reliable. But only one area carries harvest. Only one multiplies life. And here's the part that hits hard. Soil can change. A hardened path can be broken up. A rocky field can have stones removed. Thorns can be uprooted. But it requires intentional effort. It requires surrender. It requires humility. No farmer expects fruit from untouched ground. Maybe you're listening right now and realizing that your heart feels trampled by disappointment, hardened by betrayal, numb from repetition. Maybe you sprang up in faith years ago, but scorching pain dried your passion. Maybe your spiritual life isn't dead, just suffocated by worries you never intended to plant. Listen carefully. The story of the sower is not condemnation. It is invitation. Jesus didn't tell this parable to shame people. He told it to wake them up. Because here is a powerful truth. Every harvest begins invisibly, beneath the surface, in darkness, long before anyone applauds the outcome. Farmers in ancient Israel understood something we often forget. There is a delay between sowing and reaping. In our culture of instant results, we panic when we don't see immediate change. But roots are forming where eyes cannot see. Faithfulness in hidden places produces visible miracles later. And here's something even more thrilling. A single seed of wheat can produce dozens of new grains. Those grains can be planted again and again and again. One seed can eventually feed cities. Spiritually speaking, one surrendered heart can influence generations. Think of the ripple effects of one transformed life. A parent who chooses forgiveness, a leader who chooses integrity, a student who chooses courage. The harvest multiplies beyond imagination. So the real question becomes personal. What are you allowing into your soil? What thoughts are you watering daily? What habits are wrapping around your spiritual growth like thorns? Are you mistaking emotional excitement for deep-rooted faith? Are you satisfied with appearances while fruit is absent? And here's something that should both humble and inspire you. The sower never stops sowing. Even knowing that some seeds will fall on hard ground, he still scatters generously. That means if you're hearing this message right now, seed is being offered to you again. Grace is being extended again. Opportunity is alive again. Picture the farmer returning season after season, breaking soil, pulling weeds, clearing rocks, patient, determined, hopeful, because he knows what the field can become. The shock at the end of this parable is not that some seeds failed. It's that despite loss, distraction, and resistance, the harvest still came abundantly. The kingdom of God advances not because every heart responds perfectly, but because some do. And that is enough to change the world. So here we are, standing in the field together, wind moving softly across the land. The bag of seed is not empty. The sower is not finished. The condition of your soil today does not have to define your harvest tomorrow. If this story stirred something in you, if you felt conviction, hope, or even discomfort, that may be the first sign that soil is shifting. Let this be the moment you allow truth to sink deeper. Let this be the season you pull out distractions by the root. Let this be the year your faith grows beyond emotion into endurance. And I want to speak directly to your heart now. You are not forgotten ground. You are not beyond restoration. No matter how hardened, how rocky, how tangled life has become, God specializes in cultivation. He sees harvest where you see failure. He sees growth where you see barrenness. If this message moved you, don't let it sit on the surface like seed on a path. Share it. Plant it in someone else's heart. Like this video so more people can encounter this truth. Subscribe to Parables of Hope and become part of a community determined to cultivate good soil in a distracted world. Your support truly matters. When you watch, share, and engage, you help this message reach fields we may never personally walk into. And we need you. Your encouragement fuels this mission to spread hope across the globe. Go back and watch our previous videos on Parables of Hope. Let these stories continue breaking up hard ground and strengthening your roots. Together we can make truth flourish in a world desperate for real harvest. And remember this final, powerful truth. The seed carries life, the sower brings opportunity, but the soil chooses the outcome. So ask yourself tonight, what kind of soil will you be when the seed falls again? May your heart be soft. May your roots grow deep. May your harvest overflow. And may you walk closer with God than ever before. The field is waiting. And before you close this moment, before you move on to the next notification, the next task, the next distraction, stay here just a little longer. Because there's something even deeper in this story that most people never notice. When Jesus told the parable of the sower, his own disciples were confused. They leaned in and asked him why he would speak in stories instead of clear explanations. And do you know what that tells us? Even those closest to him didn't immediately understand. Growth doesn't begin with knowing everything. It begins with leaning closer. Listen, the field in this story isn't just a metaphor for individuals. It's families. It's churches. It's nations. It's generations. Think about it. One hardened heart in a household can affect the spiritual climate of an entire family. One rocky response to trials can teach children that faith is temporary. One thorn-choked life obsessed with success can silently preach that God comes second. But one deeply rooted, surrendered heart, one can transform an entire lineage. History quietly proves this. Revivals that reshaped regions didn't begin with crowds. They began with one surrendered soul, one prayer meeting, one person refusing to let the seed die. Now imagine something with me. Picture the hardened path again. Over time, if no one walks across it, if the farmer intentionally tills it, if rain softens it, if pressure breaks it open, that same path can become fertile ground. The transformation doesn't happen instantly. It's noisy. It's messy. It requires disruption. Could it be that the discomfort you're experiencing in your life right now isn't punishment, but preparation? Sometimes God allows the plow before the planting. And here's something that should both shake and comfort you. In ancient farming, the farmer would sometimes scatter seed before plowing. It looked wasteful. It looked illogical. But when the plow later turned the soil, those hidden seeds were buried at the perfect depth for growth. Stay with me here. There are things you heard about God years ago. Scriptures your grandmother quoted, sermons you half listened to, moments of conviction you ignored. You thought they disappeared. You thought they were eaten by the birds of distraction. But what if they were simply waiting beneath the surface for the right season of breaking? Here's the thing. Seeds don't die easily. In fact, archaeologists have discovered ancient seeds stored for thousands of years that still had the potential to sprout under the right conditions. Think about that. Dormant, waiting, preserved. Spiritually speaking, the word planted in your heart is not fragile. It is alive. The question isn't whether the seed has power. The question is whether we will allow the soil to change. And this is where the story becomes personal in a way that it's almost unsettling. The path didn't reject the seed because it hated it. It simply became accustomed to being walked on. The rocky soil didn't plan to fail. It just never dealt with what was beneath the surface. The thorny ground didn't start empty of promise. It just allowed other things to grow unchecked. That means none of the soils began evil. They simply became unattended. Let that sink in. Neglect can be more dangerous than rebellion. You don't wake up one day intending to have a hardened heart. It happens slowly. Repeated disappointments, unanswered prayers, subtle compromise, gradual distraction. And before you realize it, truth feels distant. But the good soil is intentional. It guards what it receives. It removes what competes. It endures seasons without visible growth. And here's a powerful detail. The harvest doesn't just benefit the soil, it feeds others. A fruitful life is never self-contained. When your faith matures, your family experiences peace. Your co-workers encounter integrity. Your friends seek consistency. Your community witnesses hope. The harvest spills over. Now let me ask you something that might stop you in your tracks. If someone examined the fruit of your life, your reactions, your priorities, your generosity, your words, what would they conclude about your soil? Would they see evidence of depth? Would they see endurance under heat? Would they see freedom from choking thorns? Or would they see potential that never quite became production? And I'm not asking that to condemn you. I'm asking because this story is one of the most hopeful truths ever spoken. Because every season is an opportunity to begin again. Farmers don't abandon fields after one failed attempt. They return, they cultivate, they restore. The sower is patient beyond comprehension. Right now, somewhere in the quiet places of your life, seeds are falling again. Through this message, through scripture, through conversations, through conviction. The question is not whether God is speaking. The question is whether we are soft enough to receive. Here's something else most people overlook. The good soil doesn't produce fruit overnight. There's a period underground where nothing seems to happen. If you judge the field too early, you'd assume failure. But transformation underground is the most critical phase. Roots push downward before fruit rises upward. So if you feel unseen, if your growth feels slow, if your prayers feel quiet, don't mistake hidden development for absence of progress. Depth takes time, and endurance creates strength you'll need later. Because heat will come, it always does. Storms will test roots. Thorns will attempt to creep back. Birds will circle. The difference isn't the absence of challenge. It's the presence of depth. And here's where the story turns into something almost shocking. The same sun that withered the shallow plants is the sun that strengthened the deeply rooted ones. Did you catch that? The trial that destroys shallow faith refines deep faith. The pressure that exposes weak soil fortifies prepared soil. It's not about escaping heat. It's about having roots that can withstand it. So maybe the hardship you're walking through right now isn't proof that God has abandoned you. Maybe it's revealing what kind of soil you've become. And if that realization feels heavy, good. Because awareness is the first step toward cultivation. Imagine the farmer kneeling in the dirt, hands calloused, patiently pulling weeds one by one. He doesn't scream at the soil. He works it. He tends it. He believes in its potential. That is how God deals with us. Not with immediate destruction, but with patient invitation, with repeated sowing, with persistent grace. Listen, this isn't just a story about agriculture in ancient Israel. It's about you scrolling at this very moment. It's about whether this message becomes inspiration that fades by tomorrow or conviction that transforms your life. It's about whether your heart remains crowded or cleared. Because at the end of every season, harvest reveals everything. The path remains empty. The rocky ground stands scorched. The thorny patch looks busy but barren. Only the good soil carries abundance. And here comes the part that should shake you in the best possible way. You get to choose your soil, not your past, not your upbringing, not every circumstance. But you can choose humility. You can choose discipline. You can choose to uproot distractions. You can choose to dig deeper. And when you do, even the smallest seed can change everything. Imagine a year from now. Imagine looking back at this very moment as the turning point. The day you stopped letting the words sit on the surface. The day you committed to depth over emotion. The day you pulled out the thorns you'd been ignoring. The day your roots began to grow. That is how revival begins. Quietly, personally, intentionally. And when enough hearts become good soil, communities transform. So before we close, I want you to pause. Really pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself honestly, what needs to change in my soil? Is it hardness that needs breaking? Stones that need removing? Thorns that need uprooting? Or is it patience that needs strengthening? This is your field. This is your season. And the sower is still walking. And you carry the choice. May your heart become good soil. May your roots grow deep. May your life produce a harvest that feeds generations. And may you walk closer with God, steady, rooted, unshaken, until the fields of your life overflow with hope. The wind is moving again. The seeds are falling. What will your soil do next? And even now, as the wind settles and the field grows quiet, there is one more layer to this story that most people never dare to explore. Because we've talked about the soil, we've talked about the seed, we've talked about the sun, the thorns, the birds. But listen carefully. We have not yet fully faced the sower. Picture him again, not rushed, not anxious, not frustrated by wasted seed. There is something almost mysterious about the way he scatters it. Wide, generous, uncalculated. From a human perspective, it looks inefficient. Why throw seed on a hardened path? Why let it fall among thorns? Why allow it to land on shallow soil? Here's the shocking truth. The sower values opportunity more than efficiency. He gives every patch of ground a chance. That alone should undo you. Because if God only invested in perfect soil, none of us would qualify. There were seasons in your life when you were hardened. There were seasons when you were shallow. There were seasons when you were distracted. And still, the seed came. Still, the invitation arrived. Still, grace knocked. And here is something deeply humbling. In the parable, the soil never moves toward the sower. The sower moves toward the soil. God initiates. God pursues. God scatters hope even in places that seem unworthy of it. Now imagine something powerful. The farmer doesn't stop after one season. He studies the field. He observes which areas resisted growth. And over time, he adapts his cultivation. In ancient agriculture, farmers would sometimes burn thorny areas after harvest. It looked destructive. Fire sweeping across dry ground, smoke rising, ash covering everything. But that ash enriched the soil. What seemed like devastation became preparation. Could it be that some of the fires you've walked through weren't meant to destroy you, but to prepare you? Could it be that loss, heartbreak, failure, even disappointment were clearing space for deeper roots? I know that's not easy to hear, and I'm serious when I say this. Pain doesn't feel purposeful when you're inside it. But look back at your life for a moment. Some of your strongest spiritual growth probably came after seasons that you thought would break you completely. The rocky soil isn't hopeless because it has stones. It's hopeless if the stones are never removed. And sometimes God lovingly exposes what's underneath so it can finally be dealt with. Here's another detail that often goes unnoticed. In order for a seed to grow, it must first break. Think about that. The outer shell splits open in darkness before life emerges. From the outside, it looks like destruction. But internally, it is transformation. The seed doesn't resist the breaking. It yields to it. And maybe that's where some of us are right now. In the breaking. In the unseen splitting. In the hidden surrender. You feel pressure. You feel stretched. You feel undone. But what if this is the very moment life is beginning? Because harvest never comes without rupture, and fruit never comes without burial. The seed must go down before it comes up. The roots must grow deep before the stalk rises high, which means the quiet seasons of your life, the unnoticed obedience, the private prayers, the disciplined faithfulness, are not wasted. They are building something beneath the surface that cannot be easily shaken. Now here is where this becomes deeply personal for the global church, especially for believers listening across America and around the world. We are living in an age of noise, endless voices, endless opinions, endless scrolling. And the danger is not persecution, it's saturation. Too much information, too little transformation. We hear sermons weekly, podcasts daily, inspirational quotes hourly, but hearing is not the same as rooting. Jesus didn't say blessed are those who listen occasionally. He said the good soil hears the word and retains it. Retention requires intention, meditation, application. Protection. Let me ask you something bold. When was the last time you fought to protect what God planted in you? When was the last time you turned off distraction because you valued the seed more than the noise? When was the last time you removed something from your life because it was choking your growth? These are not comfortable questions, but harvest only comes to honest soil. And here is the most thrilling, almost overwhelming truth of all. The harvest described in the parable is supernatural in scale, 30-fold, 60-fold, 100-fold. In ancient farming, a 10-fold harvest was considered remarkable. 100-fold was extraordinary, almost miraculous, which means when God multiplies, he exceeds expectation. The enemy wants you to believe your growth will be small, insignificant, contained. But one obedient, rooted, surrendered life can influence more people than you will ever know. A single prayer can ripple through generations. A single act of forgiveness can reset a family's future. A single moment of obedience can open doors you never imagined. The seed is small, but its potential is unstoppable. Now imagine the final scene. The season ends. The farmer walks through the field again. He sees the hardened path, unchanged. He sees the scorched, rocky patches, empty remnants of what once looked promising. He sees the thorny sections, green but fruitless. And then he sees the good soil, heavy heads of grain bending in the breeze. Abundance, provision, multiplication. And here's the final revelation that should shake you. The harvest was always the goal, not the appearance of growth, not emotional excitement, not busy activity. Fruit, real fruit, lives changed, hearts transformed, faith that endures heat, character that withstands pressure, hope that feeds others. So here's the question that echoes as we close. When your season is examined, what will be found? Surface belief, temporary passion, crowded priorities, or enduring fruit? You are not stuck as the soil you've been. You are not defined by yesterday's condition. Today is cultivation day. Today is uprooting day. Today is breaking up the hard ground day. And here's the beautiful hope. The sower has not given up on you. He is still walking, still scattering, still believing in the possibility of your harvest. So as this story settles into your heart, don't let it fade like seed on a path. Let it sink. Let it challenge. Let it transform. If this message spoke to you, share it. Someone in your life may be one seed away from breakthrough. Like this video so this truth can reach beyond your screen. Subscribe to Parables of Hope and stand with us as we continue spreading stories that cultivate hearts across the world. Your support matters more than you realize. Every view, every share, every comment helps push this message further. We can't do this without you. Your encouragement strengthens this mission to keep sowing hope into fields that feel forgotten. Go back and watch the previous stories on Parables of Hope. Let each one till your soil deeper. Let each one strengthen your roots. And as you leave today, carry this with you like a seed in your pocket. The condition of the soil can change,